My grandfather always told me, power is never just about what you have. It's about what others think you have. And right now, we are seeing a massive shift in the global balance of power, one that no one seems to be talking about. For years, Donald Trump used every tool in his arsenal to control the narrative between the United States and Mexico. From visa restrictions to threats of tariffs and military action, Trump's tactics were straightforward. Make Mexico depend on the U.S. Make them bow to the pressure. But something has changed. Mexico, once seen as vulnerable and beholden to American influence, has started to take matters into its own hands. In 2026, the very thing Trump never expected is happening. Mexico is not just standing up for itself, it's becoming a force in its own right, economically and diplomatically. The tables are turning, and it's all happening in the arena of international tourism. Let's rewind for a moment. Trump's visa policies were nothing short of humiliating. Long wait times, arbitrary denials, and insulting behavior were the order of the day for Mexican citizens. This wasn't just about travel. It was about a clear message. America's power over Mexico was absolute, and Mexico had no choice but to accept it. But fast forward to today, and things are looking very different. While Trump continues to revoke visas for over 100,000 individuals, including more than 50 Mexican politicians and government officials, something unexpected is unfolding. In 2025, Mexico shattered tourism records, welcoming over 79 million international visitors, a 13.6% increase from the previous year. The economic impact, over $28 billion. And it's not just the numbers that matter, it's the shift in power dynamics. What Mexico is doing is no small feat. They're diversifying their markets, building partnerships with Europe, Asia, and Latin America, and sending a message to the world. We no longer need to rely on the United States to thrive. This is a direct response to Trump's aggressive policies. Trump thought he could control Mexico's economy by holding the tourism sector hostage, but instead, Mexico took that power back, diversifying its connections and finding new allies. In fact, the Mexican government, under the leadership of President Claudia Sheinbaum, has launched a strategic effort to reduce its dependency on U.S. tourism. It's a game-changer, one that could see Mexico's tourism sector become the fifth largest in the world by 2030. They're not waiting for America's approval. They're building a future on their own terms. And let's not forget the international moves Mexico is making. Just this year, they became the guest of honor at FTOUR 2026, the world's most important tourism fair in Madrid, showcasing their expanding tourism reach. This is no coincidence. Mexico is positioning itself to be a global player, not just a neighboring partner to the U.S. Meanwhile, Trump's response is telling. He continues to undermine diplomatic relations, making enemies out of allies. And when Mexico takes steps to secure its future, Trump is left with empty threats and isolation. The question is, will the United States continue to isolate itself from the rest of the world? Or will it realize that its power lies in cooperation, not coercion? Here's the real kicker. Trump may have thought he could punish Mexico by restricting visas, but now millions of Americans are going to need Mexico more than ever. With the 2026 FIFA World Cup coming to Mexico, millions of U.S. citizens will flock to Mexico to witness the event. The very same people who cheered Trump's policies now have to cross the border he demonized. They'll need Mexico, and Mexico will welcome them without the humiliation of lengthy visa processes or arbitrary denials. This is the ultimate irony. Mexico doesn't need the US to thrive. In fact, it's become a lesson in resilience, in overcoming the humiliation of the past and turning it into opportunity. While Trump continues to build walls, Mexico is building bridges, and the world is taking notice. As Trump's policies continue to crumble, Mexico is strengthening its sovereignty. It's building a future that doesn't depend on the whims of one man or one country. The game has changed, and Mexico is playing a whole new ball game. This is a turning point in history, and it's just the beginning. While Trump may have thought he could dictate terms, the truth is that the power has shifted, and Mexico is now the one holding the cards. So the next time you hear about Trump's insults and threats, remember this: Mexico is no longer the country waiting for permission to succeed. Mexico is creating its own future, and the US is no longer the only game in town. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you see the future of US-Mexico relations? Will Mexico's independence continue to grow, or will the US find a way to regain its influence? Let's discuss. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. I'll see you next time. This version fits the style of your Max Stone channel, emphasizing the geopolitical shift without getting too inflammatory. It draws attention to the irony in the situation, giving a broader context while keeping the tone impactful and clear. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. Great, but make it longer. Similar to transcript, certainly. Here's a much longer version of the script that expands on the ideas, similar to the transcript style you've mentioned while staying in line with the Max Stone channel's tone. My grandfather always used to say, "You don't truly know someone until you see them in a position of power." And right now, the world is watching as Donald Trump finds himself in a situation he never anticipated. For years, he played the game of power with Mexico, using tariffs, immigration policies, and most notably, the humiliation of denying visas to Mexicans. For Trump, the strategy was simple: keep Mexico dependent on the US, use that dependency to push them around and make them feel like they needed America more than America needed them. But what's happening in 2026 is nothing short of a stunning reversal. While Trump's administration revoked visas for over 100,000 individuals, including more than 50 Mexican politicians and officials, Mexico was quietly changing the game. They were no longer asking for permission from the US to prosper. No, Mexico was making a bold move, one that would turn the tables completely. Now, before we dive deep into this, let me make sure you understand the context. When Trump came into power, his approach to foreign policy, especially toward Mexico, was nothing short of aggressive. He wanted Mexico to bow down to US dominance. He thought that if he restricted their access to the US, Mexico would be left with no choice but to comply with his every demand. He used the visa process as a tool of power, a way to show Mexico who was in charge. But here's the thing about power: it's only as strong as the foundation it's built on. If that foundation is shaky, if that power is abused, it can crumble. And that's exactly what's happening right now. While Trump has been focusing on retaliatory visa policies, Mexico has been focused on something much bigger: building its own future independent of the US. In 2025, Mexico saw a record-breaking 79 million international visitors. That's a 13.6% increase from the previous year. The country earned over $28 billion in tourism revenue, and that's just the beginning. Mexico's tourism industry is projected to contribute over 15% of the country's GDP by the end of 2026, with millions of new jobs created in the process. The irony here is that while Trump tried to restrict Mexican access to the U.S. with his visa policies, Mexico was busy building new relationships all over the world. Mexico didn't just sit there and take it. It got to work. Mexico's tourism boom isn't just about getting U.S. visitors anymore. The country has started to diversify its tourism markets with direct flights to China, Korea, and India, as well as new partnerships with European nations like Spain, Italy, and Germany. Mexico is positioning itself as a global tourism leader. In fact, they're on track to be the fifth most visited country by 2030. This is not just a reaction to Trump's policies. This is a strategic move, a shift in the balance of power. What's even more interesting is the timing. The Mexican government is making sure it's not just a one-off success. Mexico is aiming for sustainability, and just this year, they became the official guest of honor at FETER, the world's largest international tourism fair, held in Madrid, Spain. This was Mexico's biggest presence at FETER ever, with over 800 people attending and representing 32 states. This is a country that is now showing the world that it is more than capable of standing on its own 2 feet. And while this is all happening, Trump's grip on power is slipping. The very thing he tried to use as leverage, the tourist relationship, is no longer working in his favor. The U.S. might have been Mexico's biggest market for tourism for decades, but that's changing. Trump thought that restricting visas would hurt Mexico, but all it's done is push Mexico to explore other options. In fact, Mexico's tourism diversification strategy is already showing results. Countries like the UK, Argentina, Spain, and Italy have seen increased tourism numbers to Mexico, and the country's connectivity with the rest of the world is exploding. But let's step back and consider what this really means. When Trump took office, he had one clear goal: control. Control over immigration, control over trade, control over the global narrative. He used his power to force others into submission. And in Mexico's case, that was through the visa system, denying access, setting barriers, making people wait for months just to be allowed to step foot on U.S. soil. But what Trump never realized was this: when you push someone too far, they find a way to break free. And that's exactly what Mexico is doing. They're breaking free of the U.S. domination. And they're doing it with tourism. While Trump continues to tighten the screws on his own country, Mexico is opening its doors wide. They're creating a future where they are no longer dependent on the U.S., where their economy can thrive without the need for American approval. And this isn't just some hopeful dream. It's happening right now. Now, let's talk about the implications of this. Trump's economic policies, particularly his trade wars and visa restrictions, have backfired, not just with Mexico, but with the rest of the world as well. While Trump thought he was isolating Mexico, he didn't count on Mexico's ability to diversify and build relationships elsewhere. As Mexico solidifies its place as a major global player in the tourism industry, the U.S. finds itself isolated. And Mexico is now poised to become one of the world's top travel destinations by 2030. Here's the most interesting part of all of this. In 2026, Mexico will host the FIFA World Cup, and millions of Americans will be flocking to Mexico to watch the games. These are the same people who cheered Trump's policies, the ones who celebrated when he built his wall, the ones who clapped when he separated families at the border. But now they will be the ones standing in line at the border, ready to enter Mexico, a country they once viewed as an adversary. The irony is palpable. Trump wanted to punish Mexico with visa restrictions and tariffs. He wanted to isolate the country, make them beg for access to the U.S., but instead he gave Mexico the opportunity to stand tall. Mexico is no longer asking for permission to succeed. Mexico is not begging for U.S. approval to grow. They found their own path, and it's one that leads to prosperity. While Trump builds walls, Mexico is building bridges. While Trump treats visitors as criminals, Mexico welcomes them with open arms. This isn't just a political shift, it's a cultural one. And as the world turns its attention to Mexico in 2026, it's clear that the country is ready to shine on its own terms. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Mexico will continue to thrive without U.S. support? Will this change the way the world sees Mexico? Hit the like button if you believe in the power of nations to rise above adversity. And don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth coverage of global affairs. As always, thanks for watching. Mexico is no longer the country that needs the U.S. It's the one the U.S. needs to pay attention.